Welcome back to Kingston Reviews. Derek here. Thank you guys for tuning in for another video. I really appreciate it. My wife was actually involved in a rear end collision the other day, and it absolutely totaled her car. She was driving a 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited X, and she was hit from behind. And now this is actually the second time that she was hit from behind in the last year and a half. And I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about two main things. Number one, how to go about financing a car the best way to get the best rate possible and the best terms from the bank and from the dealership. And the number two thing is, if you're ever involved in an accident, it was really difficult for us to figure out how to deal with the insurance companies. I'm going to cue you guys in on a couple things that you can do in those situations. So stick around to the end of the video for that. Okay, so before we get into the video, I wanted to thank all the recent comments, all the subscribers. We've actually received well over 100 new subscribers in the last day or two, and I really appreciate it. We're very close to my goal of 500 subscribers. We just need a few more of you guys to go ahead and do that. Once I hit 500 subscribers, I do plan on talking about my previous job as a regional vice president for a large corporation and some of the unethical people and slime balls, scumbags that work there, and just working with really a bunch of sycophants, all striving to get to the top. And I have some stories about some terrible things that they did. And if you guys want to see content like that, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Okay, so the first number one thing that's important before you purchase a vehicle is never purchase a vehicle when you absolutely need one. It's the worst possible time to go shopping is when you have a need where you have to have one in the next day or two. What that does is it crunches your purchase time. And if you don't have time to make a purchase, you're going to make a quick purchase and you put yourself at the discretion of the dealership that's selling the vehicle. And so you won't have the ability to negotiate and take the time that you need to shop and find the right price and the right deal. So number one, make sure that you're shopping for the car at the right time. Purchase the car when you may not have a direct need at that time to purchase the car. So it will be really important that you plan ahead. So the vehicle that you're driving right now, for example, you want to see how many miles does the vehicle have? Do you feel very comfortable that you can maintain the maintenance and repairs on this vehicle before you're ready to purchase that next car? So I don't try to make a purchase just because I want a new car. I try to make sure that it's the right time. I look at the interest rates, I look at what vehicles are available and the current condition of my vehicle. So planning ahead is really key. Okay, so in a situation like my wife, where she's been hit from behind, you weren't expecting it, and now your vehicle is totaled, the next steps that I want to do once you make sure that you're safe and you've gone to the hospital is you want to make sure you try to figure out a timeline on when you need to purchase this vehicle. So if you've got insurance coverage, it's going to give you a vehicle for the next week or 2 weeks. You kind of know what your time frame is. This is super important because that's going to be your negotiation period to be able to finance or purchase a car, whatever it is that you're going to do. Because we want, with time, it increases our ability to negotiate and get better terms. If you shorten that time frame for your purchase, you're going to shorten the amount of time you have to negotiate and get a better deal. So my very next step is I would then go to my bank or credit union. Now my personal preference is a credit union, but you can go anywhere that you'd like. I just feel like credit unions tend to give the best terms. Also, a little known secret, a lot of the financing at dealerships are actually provided by credit unions. They actually take the information you give the dealership, and then they use that to give you an approval at a credit union, which is who is going to provide the financing through the dealership. So if you go directly to the credit union or you go directly to the bank, and I would suggest going to 2 or 3 banks or credit unions within a day or two of each other to get your approval, because you want to be able to shop rates. You want to be able to say, hey, this bank A has an interest rate here, bank B has an interest rate there, and which one's going to be better terms for me. Each bank, each credit union has different terms on used vehicles, new vehicles, so it does get a little complicated. If you guys got questions about that, please feel free to put it in the comments below. I can definitely give you some suggestions on what might be helpful for you. By doing these next steps next, you take the dealership's ability to take the financing away from the negotiation from you. Now you bring your own financing, their only leverage is the price on the vehicle. But if you give them the leverage of having the financing as well, it puts you at a weaker position. Okay guys, so here's a picture of my wife's car after the accident. I'll go ahead and post that right here so that you guys can see it. She was actually hit from behind as she was slowing down in a construction zone, and unfortunately the lady behind her actually just kind of slammed into the back of her. Like I told you before, this was the second time this has happened, and it actually totaled the vehicle. The first time it happened, it actually cost over $20,000 in insurance. We really weren't thinking about getting any money from the insurance company and got completely screwed out of any kind of money for damages, any kind of money for pain and suffering. And so I'm going to teach you guys a really important lesson when you're involved with in an accident and you have to deal with the insurance companies. So let's go ahead and talk about that for just a moment. So the number one thing after an accident, any accident that I would recommend that you do, is immediately go to the urgent care or emergency room and seek medical attention. Even if you weren't involved in a really serious accident, I still say that you need to do this. I was actually hit by a drunk driver maybe 10 years ago and actually received some pretty major back injuries that I didn't realize until later. So apparently what happens, what the doctor told me, is that your adrenaline's flowing. You don't really feel the pain until 7 or 10 days later. And then a lot of times your body will kind of heal itself and you won't even know what was caused by the accident and what wasn't caused by the accident. So number one, go seek medical attention. At the very minimum, this is going to document your accident. It's going to document any of your injuries, whether they're scratches, neck injuries, soft tissue, or bone, right? The number two thing that I would do is you've got to control the flow of information to the insurance companies. You want to give them your side of the story. You do want to give them some information, but you don't want to give them too much information. The job of the insurance adjuster is to get as much information from you and then use that information against you to give as little settlement as possible. This is something that I did not realize before, but it's something that I learned after a few different incidents that I've been involved with. The adjuster is not your friend. The adjuster is actually there to mitigate the risk for the insurance company and pay you as little as possible. So the next thing that you'll need to consider is, do you get an attorney? So I want to first start off by saying that I'm not an attorney, and these are just situations based on my personal opinion, and I definitely think that you should take the time to talk to an attorney whether you decide to use one or not. But in my experience, what I found out was that the attorneys are going to slow the process down, number one. So if you think that you're going to get this settlement, get back to work, and just you don't have to worry about it, that's not the case. The attorney is 100% going to slow the process down. They're going to ask you to go to many more doctor visits to document the injuries, maybe a chiropractor, maybe a psychologist if there's some mental issues that you've had since your accident. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm just explaining to you that if you're just trying to get through this, try to get past this, like we were trying to do, you have to understand that the attorney is going to slow that process down tremendously. Number two, the attorneys typically charge around 30%. Or better. So depending on your situation, if you were looking for a settlement of $20,000, that means the attorney would get about $6,000 off that just in their attorney fees, not to mention all your medical bills and expenses that you still would be obligated to pay, because that's what the settlement covers, is all your expenses. So you can literally end up spending a ton of money trying to get this huge settlement, and you don't get it. So what I look for is to get a settlement just to end the whole process as quickly as possible and as fairly as possible, based on all the information I got from the doctor and any information that I obtained from an attorney as to what's the best step to go forward. Now, once again, I'm not an attorney. I'm only giving you my opinion based on our situation. Now, our injuries from the accident weren't severe injuries, like bones weren't broken, no burns, things like that. I would say the more serious the injury, the more likely you need to get an attorney to deal with the insurance companies. In my situation, where you're talking about slightly more than a fender bender, where there's just soft tissue damage, I feel like I'm comfortable enough to handle those things, but you may definitely need to seek an attorney either way for your sake. Okay, so here are some solid things that you need to ask the insurance company to cover. Number one, they need to cover all your current medical bills and future medical bills. Number two, they need to cover all of your lost time from work currently and projected future. They also need to cover pain and suffering, and then any other expenses that you can document. They're going to ask you for some sort of documentation. This could be a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be receipts. And in fact, I would tell you not to send them, once again, too much information. You want to negotiate on the high side. So for example, if you've already had 3 days out of work and you project that you'll have another 6, you might want to tell them the total, instead of 9, you project that it's going to be 12, because once again, you're going to have to negotiate that. They may argue with you, and they may push that number down. So one of the most important questions that I had was, how do I calculate pain and suffering, right? I can calculate my lost time. I can calculate the depreciation of my vehicle if the vehicle was depreciated. I can calculate all those things, but pain and suffering is really difficult to calculate, and the insurance company doesn't want to pay for it. So the way that you calculate it, or one of the ways that I calculated it, was based on my total lost time, my total expenses, and then I took a multiple of that. So let's say my total lost time and expenses were $4,000. Obviously, I'm going to ask for as much as possible. You might say, let's multiply that by 2. For example, I would like pain and suffering of $8,000, right? Obviously, the insurance adjuster is not going to accept that first offer. They're going to counter offer, and then you can negotiate from there. But use your overall cost as a way to negotiate your pain and suffering. Okay, so those are 3 things you need to ask up front. One more thing that you can definitely ask for, if you can keep your car that was damaged. If your car was damaged, they repaired the car, don't forget to ask for depreciated value. Because the car was involved in an accident, you'll be able to ask the insurance companies for depreciation in value after the accident. So in case you were wondering, well, how much is depreciated value worth? In the case of my first accident where my wife was hit from behind, the vehicle had over $20,000 in damage. I was actually able to negotiate about $4,000 in depreciated value on the vehicle that I would have never received if I didn't ask for it. All right, so I hope that you guys find that information super useful. My wife ended up choosing an Audi Q7. She's actually never had a foreign car as the car that she has as a daily driver. But when we looked to replace her Jeep Grand Cherokee, we were surprised that 2024s were well over 60,000. Used 2022s were well in the $50,000, $51,000, $52,000 range. And so we found this Audi Q7 Prestige model, which is like the fully loaded model on CarMax, for just at around 40,000. Now, obviously everyone knows that Audis are beautiful cars. They have great performance, but they're not really known for their reliability. I was okay with that because I know that I'm fairly handy and I can probably fix most of the things that go wrong with vehicles. I also have great relationships with mechanics here in town that I feel very comfortable with, that I can get most everything else repaired if needed. And I take really good care of my vehicles, making sure to change the oil and do the upkeep and maintenance on the vehicles. And in this case, we were also looking for something that was visually enjoyable and really dynamic to drive. Okay, thank you guys for hanging in to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. If you guys like content like this, please don't forget to like and comment. This is a conversation. I really appreciate all the conversations that I'm having with you guys. I also really appreciate all the subscribers. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really helps the algorithm. It helps notify you whenever I put out a new video. And please put in the comments what you guys want me to talk about next. I'm really into politics, into culture. If you have any subject matters you want me to talk about, go ahead and put that in the comments below. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.